This Sunday on Commitment Sunday, Father Winchell has asked that the seminarians speak a little bit more on the annual Catholic Appeal as we kind of continue the rollout of this year's annual Catholic Appeal, to kind of give us a little bit more of a personal and practical understanding of how your generosity has essentially allowed them to continue their discernment and to help them in their formation through seminary. So a large portion of the ACA goes to seminary formation, and so to kind of help us give a better understanding of how that works, Seminarian Fred is going to give us a few words.
Yeah, thank you. So I'd like to quickly go back to the second reading that we had, particularly to the point where it says, "When I preach, I offer the gospel free of charge." These are the words of St. Paul in the first letter to the Corinthians. When I preach, I offer the gospel free of charge. Here's some pretty bold words on the Sunday that we're asking you all for money, but actually there's a really good correlation here. With the annual Catholic Appeal, the proceeds that the diocese receive are for the sole purpose that all in South Georgia have access to the gospel free of charge, that the gospel fall on all who would listen. And it's through your generosity that this is possible. Before I get into sort of a more personal sort of testimony as to how the appeal sort of affects seminary formation, I'd like to just sort of, like Father said, break down a practical of what actually happens with the funds, what actually happens with your generosity. Because it's one thing to say, thank you for your generosity. It's another thing to actually know how it's actually affecting, and particularly how it's being used to preach the gospel here in South Georgia. First and foremost, a large portion of your generosity goes towards evangelization, not just within our parish, but through the diocese as a whole. The formation of catechists, of those who go out and teach the faith. Funding for evangelization into large cultural groups, whether it's Hispanic and Latino populations, through Black, African American faith groups, through evangelization in these cultural and ethnic settings as well. Also, a huge portion of the funding goes to rural parishes as well as church missions, in places where maybe only a few people in a county are actually Catholic or attending Mass. We have many parishes and missions in this diocese where on a Sunday Mass, maybe 7, 8, 10 people show up. But your funding allows these churches to stay in operation, that even those who are so far away from the nearest large Catholic church are still able to participate weekly in the sacramental life, in the Mass. That these are in sort of the reaches of the diocese, reaches of South Georgia, still have access to a church that they can call home. Another big portion is vocations. I'll get into more of the practicals later, but just know that that's one of the sort of larger scopes of this. Another is education, and this should reign true and hit home here at St. Anne's Catholic Church, as, again, a portion of the funding goes for scholarships, not just for parishioners here at St. Anne's, but all throughout the diocese, to attend the various great Catholic schools that we have here, but very particularly, a large portion goes to here, to St. Anne Pacelli Catholic School, where we are able to teach our children not just about the faith, but also just give them a solid Catholic education. Some of your generosity goes towards rewarding scholarships that some of your own children may be able to attend our Catholic schools. Others is social service and outreach, both on the diocesan level and even somewhat on the parish level. I mean, we have such a beautiful opportunity here at St. Anne's through our outreach program directives, where many parishioners, week after week after week, give hours of their time in service, both packaging, distributing, taking phone calls, helping those in our own community who are less fortunate. And anybody who works there will tell you it is only through the generosity of those who donate and who give that this is able to be such a big operation as it is. Likewise, this is not the only operation as such in our diocese. There are numerous parishes with similar programs. And it's through your generosity that the diocese is able to sort of back up fund a lot of these programs as well. Others would be sort of diocesan-wide fundraising opportunities, sort of getting fundraising materials, whether it's through the diocese's own capital campaigns, what have you, and for various other fundraising needs. You also have stewardship development through that fundraising category as well. Finally, you'll have the canonical ministries. Canonical ministries just sort of helping fund those offices in the diocese themselves down in Savannah, whether that's the tribunal, the archives, child protective care through Vertus to keep this running, to keep our children safe, or the bishop and vicar general office. Through the fundings going to this office, it really just helps the fine-tuning of the operations of our great diocese to really function. And then again, finally, it goes, a very small portion goes to our chaplaincies, whether that's port chaplaincies, prison chaplains, hospital, hospice chaplains, all throughout the diocese. Part of your funding goes to those who are actively ministering to some of the furthest stretches, to the less fortunate, those who are in critical care, those who are in hospice, those who are in prison. A lot of the stuff that a lot of us probably would not want to have to bring the gospel to. But your funding helps those chaplains to be able to preach the gospel to all those individuals. But practically speaking, why is it that I'm here speaking to you about this, talking about money, all this sort of stuff, especially when, like you're saying, to be able to preach the gospel free of charge to all? Because I, Fred, am a beneficiary of a large portion of the generosity. That as somebody who's in priestly formation, this is not just you want to be a priest, great, you sign a paperwork and bada bing, bada boom. This is a long, ongoing process. Just to bare bones, my entire seminary journey is going to be 9 years in total. And of those 9 years, eight of which are higher education, 4 of which were an undergraduate degree, the last 2 years and 2 years to come, again, in funding into a graduate degree. And anybody who's been to college, who's been to grad school, know that it is not cheap. But this sort of funding, your generosity, helps fund young men to be able to study, to go through the seminary process, to become priests. And why is this so important? Why is this so important? Because without priests, we do not have the sacraments. Without priests, who's going to preach the gospel? Without priests, how are we able to let every ear in this diocese know the good news of Christ? So it's so important. And me as a beneficiary, what does this money look like? Sure, some of it goes to tuition. A lot of it will also go to room and board to help house me, not just at the seminary, but say during the summer, when I'm away from seminary. This sort of funding helps me to be able to stay at a parish, to have funding for food, have a little bit of a stipend that I can take care of myself. And likewise here, your generosity is allowing me and Noah to be here for an entire academic school year at St. Anne's to provide for our housing, the fees for utilities, because anybody knows that in today's world, through inflation, nothing is cheap anymore. Nothing is cheap. And it's through your generosity and I'm so blessed from the generosity, not just of you, but of anybody who contributes to the annual appeal, because you are ensuring a future of the diocese. You are ensuring the future of priests. You are ensuring the future of your children, of your grandchildren. You're ensuring the future that everyone in South Georgia has access to hear the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. I know this is, again, kind of sappy, but again, going back to that second reading. Woe to me if I do not preach it. When I preach, I offer the gospel free of charge. I want to revisit that just a second. it is weird that on this reading that we're saying, preach the gospel free of charge, we're asking for money. But this is a way that we can ensure that we are able to preach the gospel. I'm keep re-emphasizing this point because of how important it is. Church is not a subscription service that you pay once and then you can get in a few times. This isn't what we're asking for. We're asking for your generosity from your heart, how you want to contribute to the future of this diocese. And we understand everybody has different financial concerns, rightly so. Everybody has different financial circumstances. But know that no matter how much you contribute, the Lord sees your generation and is well pleased. He sees your generosity, your donation, whatever it might be, and is well pleased because every cent of what you give will go to the proclaiming of the gospel. So, again, I just want to thank you so much in advance for your generosity and for your generosity in the past, because you have ensured that those who hear the gospel here in South Georgia are able to continue to do so. Thank you so much.